Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second semifinals day of the NASPA Tournament of Champions presented by Scrabble GO. We saw an insane game just now. Austin Shin took a really close win over Jackson Smiley when Jackson made the play of Thin, allowing for Fainter to come down because he missed the fact that Sign, S-I-G-N, can take a back hook of an A for Cigna. Matt, I mean, are you ready for game 5, or are you still in shock after that last game?
Oh, I am so ready for game 5. It's going to be really exciting to see how Jackson recovers from that. That's a big blunder, and Scrabble's a very psychological game, man. Sometimes when you make a mistake, it's really hard to get back in a proper mindset afterwards. And I did talk to Jackson. I was messaging him just now. He did just completely miss the back hook on Sign that it can take an A. He said if he had seen that it takes an A, he would have absolutely played NTH as we saw him set down. So we're going to see, can Jackson recover, or will things start to get shaky for him? You know, it's very hard to think straight sometimes when you're mad at yourself in Scrabble. So we'll see. He's got 3 do-or-die games. He's got to take 3 straight against a fantastic player in Austin Shin to make it to the finals, and we'll see if he's able to recover.
Yeah, so again, to reiterate, this is a best 4 of 7. Austin is up 3-1. The winner of this goes to play Cecilia Lee in the finals tomorrow at 1 p.m. We will see if Austin can lock this up in the next 3 games or if Jackson pulls the sweep. Let's go to game 5 now. So we see Austin hovering over the rematch. And we are off. And so Austin is holding not the most conducive tiles to bingoing or anything like that. Actually, somewhat similar to the start of his last game. His last game, he had 5 E's, a Q, and a U. So he has 4 of those tiles, but he quickly plays every here. Seems like a pretty natural play. Gets rid of the V, gets rid of the Y, and it scores a bunch of points. Is Veery also a word? Or
Veery is valid, and Veery is certainly the play here. You'd like to play that shifted over to the left, putting the V on the double letter. Every takes 2 hooks. It takes a front R and a front S. And I'm very surprised that Austin has just put down every like this.
Yeah, that's actually a fairly, it's a multiple point mistake. That is interesting, but fortunately for Austin, Jackson has neither of those hooks and doesn't look like he has a bingo right away. He's holding AAEHLTY. Yeah, if you're Jackson here, you probably want to get rid of the Y and the A. I'm actually not seeing a really high-scoring play right away. Are you? Or
I mean, he can play long through that R, something like lathery, perhaps, to shed the H and the Y together. But this is going to be a tricky turn for Jackson, I think.
Yeah, Hey is a nice option there. I did not see that right away. Off of the Y, HAYEY for 28 points would give Jackson a decent leave of LAT, especially because there are 2 E's already on the board that are disconnected from each other right now. So Hey is a very nice play if Jackson sees it. I'm guessing he's going to play that pretty quickly.
It's a tricky word to find, though. It's like, it looks disgusting. Why you don't think HAYEY? That's a tough one to spot. So I wouldn't be surprised if he misses it. I also wouldn't be surprised if he sees it and passes it up anyway, just because the overlap possibilities it opens up are huge. So maybe he plays something a little bit more defensive, like YEAH on top of every. I
think that's more open in a lot of ways. The YE really could give back some big point plays, I feel like, right?
It could, neither option is very good defensively. I don't think he has almost anything good defensively. And one thing that might be in his head right now is, why would Austin play every? Is he holding an R or is he holding an S? Because there's really no reason to play every unless you're setting up a hook for yourself. Now, Austin isn't setting up a hook for ourselves or for himself. We know that, but Jackson doesn't. So Jackson probably thinks there's a good chance Austin has an S right now.
And it looks like Austin's right away going to play the beautiful play of, I never know how to pronounce this, Salom?
Selim, I think.
Selim? Okay, so he makes 4 2-letter words for 40 points, keeping QE. If you see it, it's absolutely the right play. And he saw it right away when Jackson was putting down Hey, which is a really nice find.
And this is what makes Austin so good is he just doesn't really miss stuff. If there's a good overlap that scores 40, he's automatic on it. He's so good.
And Jackson, meanwhile, sets up the L because YOW does take a back L. It also takes a back E, though, so it's not quite... You'll sometimes get blocked there, but this is a really cool idea by Jackson to quickly play Ma for a bunch of points with the potential to set up a big tile. And Austin will not block that back hook E potential of YOW. He'll instead play Cage, making Heme, Heme. Oh, he takes it back. I guess he's considering doing something the other way. And then he goes back to Cage. So this looks like a really strong play again. These players are making these plays quickly, and we will see what Jackson does next. I think, did he have Tallier on his rack?
He has
Jackson?
Literal and Tallier. So we'll see if he spots Reverie. Oh, he's got Literal with Yowl.
Right.
So that's fantastic. And Jackson's going to cash in on the spot he set up for himself.
And this is exactly the kind of play Jackson needs after missing Cigna last game. Like, this is the kind of thing where it's like, okay, I'm up by 50 points now. Now I can just concentrate on this game. I've shaken off the bad juju from last game. I can just move on and make good plays.
So we've seen these plays are just flying off the board. There really hasn't been a lot to think about on any move. Maybe Hei was a kind of tough position, but Selim is basically an automatic play. Ma, automatic. Cage, there's really no other choice, and Literal, automatic. And these guys, I know Jackson plays a lot of blitz. I'm not sure about Austin, but sometimes the plays are just so incredibly obvious to you as a top level player, and they're just throwing them down real quick.
Yeah, so Austin, for a hot sec there, put down Boyle, which we can see simulates better than Roque, R-O-Q-U-E, off of the R in every. As a reminder, we normally arrange the plays in Quackle by kind of their overall value, regardless of the specific game situation. Just over time, how good of a score you get and how good of the leave on average your leave is. That's what it's normally sorted as statically. But if we simulate a turn like we just did here, we can actually approximate, given the board and the contents of the bag, how good a play is. And so we see Boyle actually simulated better than Roque.
And you can see exactly why with Austin's pull. Boyle allows him now to cash in that QU he held for coin underneath for 50, more than 50 next turn, but does the spot stay open? On a board with basically two opportunities, front hooking every or playing underneath Boyle, you just have to assume Jackson's going to go there the vast majority of the time. Still a good idea by Austin. The QU is pretty powerful. He can play down the J row through that E, making QUE something or something QUE. But Jackson's almost definitely going to take away that spot. And it looks like Jackson's got some choices here. Radix or Ticks. He'll have to decide if I want 50 points but open the board right now, or if I want 42 points, keep things tight, and hold bingo-prone tiles. How do you feel more?
The R specifically is such a key tile given the every front hook. So I actually would elect to play Ticks over Radix, but I think both seem very good here. We'll see how it unfolds. And it looks like Jackson picked up a lot of vowels with that, so not the poll he was hoping for. Austin's going to try a word that isn't in the NWL dictionary, so he will need to brainstorm something else.
Yeah, man, how many times have we seen that from Austin? Now he's checking NOX, also invalid in the TWL dictionary, but valid in the international dictionary. I do wonder if this has taken any kind of psychological toll on him. He's had just numerous good plays taken away from him.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. He really would have wanted to see coin come down there, but OI is looking like what he's going to do now, which I think is a great idea. The leave he's keeping, EINQU, has a lot of synergy. You can even pick up bingos a lot of the time next turn. And this scores pretty decently. If you even don't get bingos next turn, you could... Oh, he has queen actually as an option. I missed that at first. But that is a backup option he could do as well. But I like this idea of OI or even doing queen. One of the two seems fine.
Yeah, you really have to decide how long can I afford to sit on this nice balanced rack but score very little. Boyle, I only scored 12, but I held some stuff that should score well next turn. And OI, I'm doing it again. How many turns can Austin afford to score little now, trying to invest in the future? How many times can he miss that future investment before he's out of this game entirely? It looks like he'll get another chance at least because Jackson has drawn so poorly on this rack. But frustrating for Austin that you're keeping letters that should get you a lot of points and you're not really able to get a lot of points.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Jackson's going to play Ova here to set up through the V in every to set up his N for Nova potentially. That E in every or both E's in every are kind of dangerous bingo spots. And if you think Austin after a play like OI is holding bingo letters, which is much likelier, honestly, than him holding the Q. It's a really interesting idea to try to maybe block that area, but still give yourself a lane because you'd be keeping ETION, and TION is a very natural end for a lot of words. So OVA could allow for Nova plays. Matt, what's jumping out to you here?
Well, I do think it's very funny that yeah, you never really expect Austin to be holding QU after Boyle and then OI. I don't much like OVA here. There's just too many bingo opportunities for Austin on the board between the front hooks to every. OVA does knock out like sevens that could play on top of or underneath every in the 7 or 9 rows. But so many bingos are still going to be able to play in other places. If I'm Jackson, I'm either looking to play off just OO, and there's not really a good spot to do that, or I would do exactly what he's doing here and just blow it up as much as I can, play a ton of tiles, and hope for better letters next turn. I like Toomey a lot.
And he got those, yeah. Yeah, well, it looks great now. He got the blank, he got an S, so he will be in great shape for next turn. A bingo should come down from him.
Right, he's got up, raise, and in front of every. He's got quite a few options, and this could be crazy. So Austin looking at quid or equid. I wonder if equid would give up a triple. Quid would give up huge equid or squid plays to Jackson. Jackson's going to score a lot regardless, but is he going to be able to score a ton if Austin sets him up? That's the question.
Yeah, it is tough because Jackson is holding a lot of vowels here, so I'm not sure if there will be anything. Oh, I just looked it up, actually. There would be one, eupepsia.
But that doesn't fit. He would need the E just a little bit higher up for... Oh, no.
No, it does fit.
Eupepsia would be a triple if equid comes down. Oh, my goodness. Will Jackson find eupepsia? Will Austin give it up? Oh, my goodness. If Jackson triples again, that would be the confidence booster he needs after what we saw last game. Wow.
Yeah, so this is definitely an interesting turn all of a sudden. It feels like the stakes have been raised. I'm surprised, though. What's stopping Austin from playing Quinn here instead of quid or equid? Just because that seems so much less dangerous.
The score, he is losing by 90 points. If you play Quinn, that closes off a lot of opportunities on this board, and very quickly Jackson could just wall you in and autopilot. So I think Austin really needs to take an aggressive shot here. I don't think you can just play Quinn and kind of roll over.
So, yeah, I guess, is there any value to keeping the Q again this turn? So he could do something like bind off of the E in tuning the R and radix. Is there any value to opening a dangerous lane like that, keeping the Q? Or I guess that doesn't seem too fruitful. Jackson will go there so often. I'm just trying to think, is there any other way? Yeah, so he's going to do he's looking at something like that now, thinking maybe I can cash in the Q for a bunch, which is a reasonable idea also. I think the problem with a play like quid or equid is it's so likely your opponent has one of those tiles, right?
I mean, I don't think you can play quid here. I think maybe equid is possible. Opening up the triple is scary, sure, but when you're losing pretty badly, like I think it's a reasonable thing to do. I also think Deb is pretty reasonable, but when you make a play like Deb trying to set up the Q, you need to think about what you can actually draw. And I can't remember the backhooks to QUIN in Collins, but I know QUINO at least is valid. And I don't see anything in TWL that he can pull there unless he gets a 2-tile pull. Like, TE he would need to hit quite or something underneath.
Yeah, and just remember, he already checked if quino was a word in this dictionary. So we saw him try that on the board at least once this game, so he already knows that is invalid.
So Jackson's going to crush that spot. He's going to instantly see auspice, and while it's not eupepsia, it's still a massive bingo. And Austin, I think, has the right idea there, and it just doesn't really work out for him. He does pick up a blank, which is nice and gives him a fighting chance, but man, he's been sitting on that cue for a while, and he's just not been able to do anything with it. Oh, I take that back. I missed a quinoa, and that is what, 70 points. So he is able to do something with it. He feels pretty good now. And what did Jackson draw? Wow.
So Jackson will have Vrau through the O and Toonie at a minimum to get rid of the V, the R, and the W, which definitely, and scores fine. It scores 20 points. But yeah, quinoa was really the only play that could get Austin back in the game. With the blank, he has at least an outside shot of winning. But if Jackson plays this game smooth, he's in pretty good shape.
So this is really interesting. If Jackson's able to knock out the E and every and the front hooks at the same time, and he's got the V, which is the perfect tile to block, then he can. And it's close to game over. Austin's going to have to really aggressively open or try to bingo to the C and cage. But I don't see a word that Jackson has that really actually effectively blocks. You would want to do something like VERT for 7 through the first E in every, but that takes a front A and a front O. You maybe do something like DEV, DEV. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I think something like VET is probably the most effective, but even then that has a back O hook. So, most of the time, just like a little 4-letter V word right there would be great. Even VETS, but Jackson just doesn't happen to have one that actually blocks everything somehow. Still, I think VET's a good idea. If Austin happens to have a bingo right now with veto, it's going to score very little, and it's still advantage Jackson. But I think this is a great thing. Drew. That does set up that doesn't really deal with every's front hooks. It still allows 7s to come down, front hooking that. I don't think Drew is nearly as defensive as you'd like it to be. I think this is a choice between take the equity play and Vrau, which is correct when you ignore defense, or if you try and get cute and make a little block through the E.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a tough turn, but Vrau, I mean, it's a safe choice, and Jackson might want to not be. He might be a bit cautious after the end of the last game, how he kept trying to maneuver and do kind of this really creative play and then just forgot that one little case that changes everything. He might just want to, on that sort of play, realize I'm up now. These are virtually even in my analysis right now, but I might be missing something, so I might just play the natural play.
Right. Your confidence gets shaken when you absolutely blow a game, as we just saw. I don't know. I think Vrau is still the right thing to do there. Jackson just didn't quite have the block he needed. And Austin's in an interesting position here. He'd like to try and open this board if he can, but he just doesn't really have a good way to do it. And Jackson, again, doesn't have a good block. He didn't pick up a single vowel after his 3-tile play, and a play like gent through the E is still something he wants to do, but that takes a front A, and he just doesn't have the stuff he needs. Maybe tend, T-E-N-D.
I think dent, dent or tend.
I'd play tend instead. I don't want to give Austin the D to bingo 2 just on top, but something like that. Still, you want to put the G there. It has the fewest front hooks, right? If you put the G there, then Austin's going to have to bingo down ending in AS or AR, like ASE, ARE, which is a lot harder than ER or ES, which is very common.
We see the bag just because Jackson's considering gent? I'm wondering if he sees that there aren't a lot of A's left, because it looks like there's a lot on first glance from our board. So we have, how many A's do we have? It looks like we have 3, 4, 5, 6 played, and Jackson's now holding one. So maybe he's. So we'll monitor the A's, but it looks like Austin is playing a bingo now, Proet. So I don't know if that's the highest scoring option. We just have to restart Quackle, so we're entering in the plays again now. We'll have that up shortly, but Proet seems like a pretty solid play there. And it might not be enough, though, for Austin to truly come back, just because you can see the score at the bottom. It would score 67 points. Jackson is up by over 80 now. So this probably won't be enough, especially because you're giving a turn back to Jackson, and Jackson has a lead after this kind of play. I guess, Matt, what would be an alternative here?
I mean, you have to bingo if you're Austin. You have to bingo now. You can't keep sitting on it. You can't keep waiting and waiting. Jackson is closing the board. You've really got one or two even reasonable lines left. You've just got to take it and, score the most you can and give yourself the most unique floaters that are the hardest to block. And I think Proets does a very good job of that. You can see it looking at the left or right side of Proets. It's pretty difficult to knock out every single one of those letters without giving something back. Maybe a little three-letter word like END, making ERNO and DE or something. But you just want to give yourself the best shot to stay in the game and open up as many lines as you can and also score.
Oh, well, I'm liking this. So it looks like he's looking at possibly playing something parallel. Yes, he's going to play Port, setting up Sport. That scores a lot of points, and it will... So interesting. Why would he consider the T there over the R? I think Port to set up Sport is a cool idea if you think that Proets just doesn't score enough there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea.
There are so many S's out, but still, it increases your chances if Jackson can't block there right away. That sort of bingo making a Sport hook is so much more than Proets that I think you really have to think about it.
But this is where rack inference is a very big deal. If you think about Jackson's last two plays, he plays VROW through an O and then GENT through an E. To me, that screams, I have 7 consonants, but they're not so bad that I'm going to exchange. Having 6 consonants is not possible because Austin has the last blank. So Jackson's not sitting on a blank. And if Jackson doesn't exchange big on the Vrau turn, he almost certainly has an S. I think Austin probably thought through all of that. Port was a really cute idea, a really smart idea, but I think you have to pull it back because I think it's just a little too likely, a little too obvious that Jackson's sitting on an S in that situation. So I think that's a great call by Austin.
Yeah, but I love the idea, and I loved him laying it down just to sort of examine, is this worth it? And so Austin narrows the gap. Jackson's now up 333 to 315, and it is Jackson's turn. So he has a bit of a score advantage and a bit of a tempo advantage here. This will be interesting to see how Jackson responds. I mean, there aren't really that many great spots for his letters at this point. He has, I guess, off of the ER and E in Toonie, Radix, and Deb, he could make a play with the H. So he could play something like had, or DAC with DERE. So actually, is that a word? I feel like I've been shaking on some 4-letter words this tournament.
DAC is valid. DHAK, yes.
DERE, I meant, is the one I was unsure about.
That is valid as well, yes.
Cool. So those are some possibilities maybe for him. Are you seeing any other options, Matt?
I'm probably playing on the left side of quinoa here. I desperately, if I'm Jackson, want to block the E in Proets. I think that is Austin's best chance to have a second consecutive bingo. I just don't think I have a play that's good enough to do that at this point. I'm sacrificing too many points to do that. And Jackson is only up by 18. It feels like he's really, running away with this one. Yeah, no, it's only an 18-point lead after that bingo. I think Jackson needs to just take the points with HAD on the side of quinoa and hope that he's able to do something, about the E next turn, maybe.
Would you consider, if you want to block the E, would you consider Hant making agent?
No.
Okay.
There are two unseen S's. That opens the 5 row for any bingo ending in an S or an E or an A. You absolutely can't do that. Jackson looking at had in a different spot instead, scoring 21. Yeah. I don't really know why you would play that when you can score 25 over on the other side. Maybe Jackson just hasn't noticed it yet. I think
it's because the K is valuable in that quinoa spot, and I don't think there are any other tiles left that are valuable there. So
That's a fair consideration too. Yeah, we can ask him about it after the game, or at the end of the series, perhaps. I believe we're going to go through and probably post-mortem each game, look at 2 or 3 interesting positions. And should Jackson end up losing this one, like that could be a reason why. 4 points is valuable in a slugfest like this. And Austin has some great scoring tiles right now. Bingo's probably not going to happen again in this game, but scoring will. And especially with Austin Shin, the scoring never stops. And ZSS, those are the best scoring tiles left in the game. He's got all of them on his rack right now.
Yeah, if we could see the contents of the bag from Austin's perspective, try to figure out what could be a map for him to getting a win here. So the J is also still out. That is going to be tougher to play off than a letter like the K here. I guess what Z plays does Austin even have? I guess he has Zaz for 29. But yeah, would that be enough, or do you just play off the only Z with like Za off of Cage and try to go more for Bingo straight up? What would you consider here, Matt?
If I'm Austin, I don't think I need to Bingo to win this game. It's tough. It's really tough. He's in a tough position, and I'd love to see how he plays it. This again will be educational for every single person watching this game. How do I handle a situation like this? He's probably thinking about big threats that he could have. He's probably thinking about setting up that Z. He's probably looking at how bad the unseen pool is. It doesn't look nice, but is it bad enough that I can try and catch Jackson with his pants down and like he has no good options? Very curious to see how he plays it. I would guess he just plunks the Z next to Cage, playing ZA for 22. But I could also very much see a play like Zaz and Severy coming down.
Yeah, well, now he's considering gas, and he switches it to Zaz.
So the chat points out that if he just fishes the Z, he could pull into, I guess, a Swager, Assuager to the R in Proets. And also, like, fishing one tile scares Jackson a lot. So maybe Jackson decides he really needs to block the board right now and gives up a lot of points to do so. I think that's a really fun idea for Austin. Sim really loves G8 SAU, and I'm trying to understand why.
So SAU G8. I need to.
So that's Severy, AN, and UT.
Yeah, that's. What does that even set up? Yeah, I'm not seeing it right away.
So my guess, if we're on a 2-ply sim, is you do that, and then the next turn you plunk the Z for 22, and you're holding an S, and it loves that leave because it's a bingo-ish leave. And my guess is 2-ply sim, that sim's better for like no good reason. It doesn't seem to set up anything. If I'm Austin, I'm scoring points, and I'm probably cashing the Z right now. Either Zaz and Severy as he's thinking, or just the one-tile plunk at N2.
Yeah, and when we say 2-ply sim, if you're unaware of that terminology, that just means a simulation 2 turns out, and then after that point, approximating a percent chance of winning. So Matt's point is normally, if you only go a certain turns out, you still have to do some sort of approximation, just like you have to do with no simulation at all. And Matt's point is, even if you go a few turns out, this will look good statically, but we know that's going to be really hard to bingo on this board.
So it looks like Austin just decides to score as much as he can right now with Zaz and Severy. I think it's also important that he takes the
Jungles. Wait, is junglers a word?
Jungles is what he's drawn. Oh, we need to check.
Junglers? No,
it is not. It is not good. That would be nuts if it were. So I'm curious to see. Oh, he's checking it right now. We've switched over to Austin's display, and he's probably disappointed to see that that's no good. You can see him kind of bring his fist down in frustration a little bit.
Yeah, I guess Jackson. I feel like Jackson normally would want to play nag here just to set up snag as an option, but he'll probably see that there is another S out, so he shouldn't do that. But yeah, it's a tough position for Jackson. How many vowels are even left from his perspective?
He's got 6 out of 13, so that's actually leaning vowel heavy.
Yeah, so that's pretty good for him. Yeah, I guess what can he even do here? It's tough.
Nur jumps out to me, KNUR, KNURR, but that allows Austin to play down through the N from H1 and open another line and score all at the same time. And that's just not something you want to do. But Jackson has been caught with a really bad rack and not a lot of scoring options. And really, this is going to come down to who can score the most over the last couple turns, I think. Austin correctly assessed, I believe, that he didn't need to bingo. He could just score, and have a good shot at catching back up.
Yeah, the two plays I like here. So Kudo through the O and Pro X looks really nicely defensively. The other thing is possibly keeping the K, because the spot off quinoa, the I in that, that is a great spot for the K. And if you look at the contents of the bag, there's very few other letters that can really go there and score. The G is the next best tile. It would stink if Austin blocked that spot, but it could be that Jackson might deduce that it's worth keeping the K here. That'd be definitely something I would think about.
It looks like Jackson is counting tiles with this pointer. Have we seen Jackson open the tile bag feature? Does he know that it tracks for you on this app?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if our producer feels comfortable relaying that information to him at this point, but that is a good question.
We shouldn't interrupt him. I think the worst thing we could do is interrupt his train of thought. This is one of the toughest positions I've seen this entire series for Jackson. A lot of options. How much can I score? How much do I invest in next turn? If he plays something like Kudo, the defense is great, but it scores 10 and leaves him with NRST, which is not going to net you any points down the road. I just don't think you can afford to do that. You can't be that confident blocking. But what else can he do?
So it looks like he might be playing Noir now, keeping the K for next turn. It scores 11, and the K is the most valuable tile left in the game. Oh, I guess the J is still out too. That is something he needs to be thinking about. Yeah, I really like this idea specifically. These are the tiles you probably want to get rid of with the K. The N and the R have great synergy with the K. And so if he draws an I or an E, that will give him kin or ken parallel to quinoa. And he drew an I, so he will have that next turn.
Yeah, that was a great choice, I think, by Jackson. Very, very tough position, but you want to hold on to your ammunition for down the road. You don't want to blow it all. You want to score a little bit or guarantee yourself at least a few points in the future. I think that was a great choice.
So he has a 23-point lead. It is 367 to 344 with 4 tiles left in the bag. Julep is Quackle's top play right now. I would score 30 points and give Austin a 7-point lead. But my guess is that might not be enough to outrun Jackson once Jackson goes to the end game there.
Right. Julep is going to empty the bag, and so both players have exactly 7 tiles on their rack. It's Jackson's turn, so while he's down 7, he could almost certainly think of a situation where he can go out in 2 moves unblockably, and in a close game, whoever goes out first is very often the winner. So
if you look... Oh, I was going to say, if you look at the one play ahead of Julep, that would go for junglier. We looked up junglers as a word, but junglier is a word, and there are 2 I's left. So that might be an option too.
It also hits jongleur with an O, JONGLEUR.
Oh my God. So 3 tiles in the bag. That would be crazy if he decides to do that. I mean, would Jackson sniff that out, do you think? Or
if you plunk an S in a 1-tile play at this juncture of a game, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but it's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's going to have to come up with an effective block that still scores well, but then Austin, well, it holds Julep, but then Jackson's going to be looking at that R to try and block, and there's a good chance Julep goes away if the R gets blocked as well. So I'm trying to find a path to victory for Austin here. I'm sure he is too. Julep doesn't feel like the play unless Jackson, ends up with an absolutely abysmal rack and can't go out in 2. And given, we have a nice mix of vowels and consonants in the bag, even though there's some gross stuff, Jackson's probably going out in 2 after a play like Julep. So maybe you do fish here. Maybe you don't. This is very hard, and this is why Austin Shin's rated 2100 and I'm not, because I have no idea what to do.
if we could look at the contents of the bag to see what Austin could be looking at, that'd be great. So one option here is to try to fish off the N or the L off of the A, G in Zaz and Gent to try to set up your S. You might, if you think that Jackson isn't likely to have a bingo here. So you're not going to be giving it bingos, and it might just force Jackson to actually have to use all of his artillery to go there and block. So that could be an option if Austin wants to keep trying to do something. But it looks like he picked up the S for a second, so maybe he is considering doing Kiers and Auspices, which would be a crazy idea.
If you put down just the N, you make NAG for 4. If you draw Jungle's back and Jackson doesn't have an S for snag, then that could make things a little bit interesting. But I think fishing the S is a really neat idea. I think Austin's in a pretty bad shape, and he did draw Jongleur and immediately sets it up. Wow. So we'll see what Jackson does. I'd be shocked if he doesn't block, but we'll see exactly how he blocks. And you can see, he's opened the bag, and he's really trying to assess what threats are available. Looks like Jackson really wants to play Nur. He might want to think about shifting that over one spot. Maybe not. We need to figure out exactly what possibilities are there. But, Jackson knows there's really only one good spot. I wonder if there's any unseen bingos with like an I over with quinoa. We've already seen Austin bingo making QI earlier this set with Epi Naoi and QI. Doesn't look like any of that is possible right now in this unseen pool. So I think if Jackson just deals with all of the threats through Proets, he might win. Trying to find bingos that end in an I or something that Nur wouldn't block, or end in IE.
Yeah, it's I'm not really seeing anything. I don't see anything, at least. But these players are much better than me, so I guess Eulogia, would that fit?
Oh my goodness, Eulogia would fit, and that's another thing that maybe you fish for. But he can't know that Jackson's going to, he's not fishing for Eulogia here. He's fishing for something that actually plays on the board. So Jackson's got to try and figure out, is he fishing for something down the C row, something really weird, or is he fishing for 8s through the P or through the PR or O? And I don't see anything in the unseen pool that could fit down the C column. Jackson's going through all the possibilities right now as well.
Yeah, and so one thing to just point out to people, since we're talking very in-depth strategically here, let's just blow it up a sec. Matt mentioned, which is a great point, that Jackson needs to be thinking not only what bingos are available in the bag, but what bingos are most likely, given the fact that Austin just played Auspices. This is kind of where Scrabble becomes a lot more like poker. Scrabble is a game with imperfect information, unlike chess, which you can see all the tiles or all of the pieces that a player has. So it's more like poker in the sense that you're uncertain about what your opponent has. But just like poker, given the moves your opponent has made, you can possibly deduce what they have. And he's not going to block.
He has to block. He has to block here. Oh my goodness, he's thinking. He hasn't hit confirm. He's probably counting and trying to figure out what he can survive. Maybe he can survive a little baby bingo with all 1-pointers to the R, but there's no way he survives Jongleur. And I can't believe surely he's just thinking about this right now, but I can't believe he's not. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Jackson. Oh, wow. And Austin.
So
Austin's
second.
on cloud 9.
Well, Austin's going to get his second walk-off bingo. And this is truly a walk-off bingo for the match. This is like Game 7 of the World Series type of stuff. Or maybe the AL or NLCS, since Austin's now going to advance to the finals. So Austin bingos out with Jongleur, and that will give him the win for both this game and the series. 4-1.
What a play. Wow, dropping the S. What a gutsy move by Austin. Fantastic way to get back in the game. And wow, just unbelievable. This is why Austin Shin is a machine over the Scrabble board. This is why he's one of the best players in the entire world. Unbelievable.